From a man the lower half of whose body has been redacted for the public's protection, this is the Daniel Natal Show. Have you noticed how your dollars are not going as far lately? It's not just gas. Everything in the supermarket is suddenly more expensive. Economists call this shrinkflation. Retailers can either charge you more for the same amount or keep the price the same and subtly give you less. I've noticed that my cereal box is skinnier. My coffee can is a few inches shorter. According to the BBC, they've discovered more than 2,500 products subject to shrinkflation. They write, as many as 2,529 products have shrunk in size over the past 5 years, but are being sold for the same price, official figures show. The Office for National Statistics, ONS, said it was not just chocolate bars that had been subject to so-called shrinkflation. It said toilet rolls, coffee, and fruit juice were also being sold in smaller packet sizes. Basically, what's happening is that as the central bank hyperinflates the currency, it dilutes the value of each dollar in circulation. So it's not that the products are becoming more expensive, it's that the dollar's purchasing power is diminishing. And this gets to the heart of the matter. Why is the Federal Reserve printing up historical amounts of currency? 35% of all US dollars in existence have been printed up in the last 10 months. Catherine Austin Fitts said that there's a war on between those who want to save the American nation by sacrificing the American empire and those who want to sacrifice the American empire to save the American nation. What she means by this is explained by something called Triffin's dilemma. This was a paradox noticed by Belgian economist Robert Triffin. He noticed that when an empire has the world's reserve currency, there's a curse attached to it, like the proverbial white elephant of Indian lore. Basically, it's a prestigious thing that's more trouble than it's worth. The rest of the world loves using the same currency. Why? It cuts down on friction and keeps transaction costs low. Instead of having to deal with a million different exchange rates, if they all use the US dollar, then things move faster and cheaper. The problem with it is that to keep the world bathed in dollars, the US has to keep printing up currency. So, to please the rest of the world, they hyperinflate their money, but at the cost of triggering things like shrinkflation at home. See here.
The Triffin dilemma describes a conflict of economic interests that is spawned out of a currency acting as a global reserve asset. In the reigning fiat monetary system, the US dollar is the dominant global reserve currency, and has been so since the 1940s. In the case of the USA, the Triffin dilemma, or the Triffin paradox, points out how the domestic interests of the country are in a constant state of conflict with the international interests brought by the dollar acting as a global reserve asset. This dilemma was originally identified by Belgian-American economist Robert Triffin in the 1960s. He noted that for the dollar to remain a currency other nations wish to hold, the US must be willing to supply the world with an extra supply of its currency in order to fulfill demand for foreign currency exchange reserves abroad. This in turn inevitably leads to a trade deficit for the US. In other words, as long as the dollar serves as the de facto global reserve asset, it will always be in a state of sacrificing some domestic economic issues for global ones.
So what happens is that to keep the global grid going, the empire has to keep printing money. This hyperinflation eventually dilutes the currency to such an extent that it eventually collapses. Getting back to Catherine Austin Fitts' comment about those who would sacrifice the republic for the empire, one of those people is geopolitical strategist George Friedman. He very frankly says that Americans will have to come to terms with losing their republic to preserve the interests of the empire. Here he is speaking on the topic.
So when you think about it, it's a very young empire and one without the institutions for being an empire, and most of all, without the ability to face the fact openly of what we have become, and harboring illusions that, well, we can decide not to be this, we can be something else. And I can't imagine anything more dangerous in the world than an empire with the power of the United States that wants to pretend that it really doesn't want the power and that it really isn't an empire. It's just a club of really nice guys trying to help out. That's a problem. The second problem deriving from this is that this empire is a tremendous threat to the republic. The United States was founded as a moral project And the heart of the moral project was anti-imperialism, the idea of national self-determination. And we were the first. And when we were founded, it was said that we should avoid entangling alliances, which was quite easy since no one really wanted to be allied with us. It is not clear to me that the Republic can survive. And I say that very unhappily because I regard the moral project as central to the United States. And yet, as with Rome, as with Britain, institutions must change. And the way we have changed it since World War II was to imbue the executive with enormous power, because that's how decisions have to be made. The executive is unstable in the way that the executive branch has evolved. Decisions are made, and you frequently cannot understand how the decisions are made, and multiple decisions are made that sometimes run against each other. And in the course of this, the air is being sucked out of the Republic.
He's right. The main tension in the United States is based on its identity crisis. Is it a republic or an empire? And now here we are, hyperinflating the currency to try to grease the world economy in the interest of the empire. Countries like Honduras or Kenya or Micronesia cry out for more dollars to spur liquidity as the global economy sours. But as we do so, it sabotages our own domestic industries as things cost more here to pay for inputs to manufacture goods in America. Exporting does fine when you lower the value of the dollar by diluting it. So the American goods are cheaper overseas. If it costs less, foreigners will buy it. A weaker dollar, however, makes imports more expensive. This means that factories in America will shut down and more unemployment will be generated. There are already more than 30 million Americans out of work. And what happens in America when you make things more expensive to produce? Those factories close down here and open up overseas. So Triffin's paradox kicks in. As we become more global, we destroy the homeland. Kind of like a person who uses muscle gel to make fake muscles, but ultimately has less and less muscle and more chemicals. It's like saying hyperinflating the currency is a good thing as you inject yourself with silicone. In fact, it makes you weaker, and ultimately it damages your body and brings about an early death. To cut to the chase, just remember what it means the next time you go to the supermarket and witness the inflated cost of products firsthand. It's a barometer for how the system is not being run for your benefit or for the country's benefit, but rather for the empire. Does it ever feel like you're not getting the full story from the media? Like there are powerful and dark forces behind the scenes manipulating national and world events? You're right on both counts. To get the full story, every time, check out Behind the Deep State, hosted by Alex Newman from The New American.